Temt-Ta, Hassa, Phi Padaran, Shilpa, Temt-Ta. This is a SF-181 experience video that I'm asking. And who is it that I'm asking the questions to?
I am Kambui Samuel, a white Tantan of Kalinago and Akan descent.
Greetings. So you did an
Greetings.
SF-181, change your race from black to white. What was your first thought when you found out that you're actually white in commerce and not black? What was the first thing that went through your head?
Well, the first thing that went through my head, I was excited, and also I realized that I was lied to from since I was born.
Can you say
I was,
that part again? You broke up. You were lied to since what?
I was excited, and then I realized that I was lied to from since the day I was born.
And what country are you in?
I'm in Antigua and Barbuda Corporation, corporate governance. Its indigenous name is actually Gua Ladi and Gua Omani. That's the original name that the Kalinago / Caribs gave it.
And so when you found out that you were lied to and you're actually white, how did that make you feel in terms of now going forward in this commercial world? How did it make you feel? Now you know you're actually, that's your right to be white. How did you feel?
I felt empowered. I felt I felt that this is something that my family should know, especially my niece and nephews, especially my younger cousins of them should know, and that we here we need a purging in terms of knowledge, a purging in right knowledge. It has to be right knowledge and right understanding that leads to right wisdom.
Sound right reasoning and right wisdom, all white. So afterward, what was your experience when you tried to share that information with people that you may have considered conscious, tolerant, knowledgeable? What was your experience informing them of the truth of what you know about being white?
Well, my experience is that I got a lot of looks like you're crazy, like what you mean by I'm white. And when I'm explaining to them, it has nothing to do with skin color, because in 1997 the Queen changed the Social Security Act. I was going at grammar school at the time, so it's like, which one of our teachers taught us that in social studies? None of our teachers taught us that. They taught us everything else. They taught us about UNESCO. They taught us about food. They taught us about all the different ABC agencies of them. But when it comes down to what the Queen did in 1997, no
You mean
one made us
Elizabeth? You
aware of
mean
that.
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth II.
Yeah, she's not queen. So don't forget that Regina versus she never was queen. Elizabeth II.
Yes, facts, chief, facts. That is true.
So after okay, so that you're saying you weren't getting a receptive response. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I met a lawyer, and I gave him the definition of white according to the SF-181, and I also break it down to him in terms of homonyms, where you had WHITE, then you had WHIT, and then you had. So I was
HWIT. There's another one is the HWIT. Yeah.
right. So I was showing him the meaning according to etymology, and then showing him now that because at school they teach us grammar, the rules of grammar. So you have nouns, adjective, prepositions, um, and so forth. So when I was breaking it down to him and showing him the difference in the homonyms and the synonyms, it's like he was giving me a lot of like he couldn't grasp it at the time being a lawyer, but when he went home and checked it for himself, came back and told me yes, yeah, I was right. But then I met one of our his name is Alistair Thomas. He's one of our educators in terms of Afrocentric knowledge and what Antigua stories about and so forth. So I was breaking it down to him, and it's like it just flew over his head completely because even up to now, he still used the term black in terms of describing us here, which is a misnomer.
And I dare say a slave brand at this point. I mean, he can
Facts,
call it a slave
facts.
brand. All right. So since you felt empowered, which was the video that caught your attention about being white?
Well, my favorite video at the time was 109, where you break down about the OMB, how the
Yes.
OMB cannot change the race and ethnicity. And if they change the race and ethnicity, they're going to have a lot of financial consequences trying to change it. So 109, that video resonated a lot with me. And then it spiraled off where I went into it with into the Dred Scott case of 1857,
Yes.
and that opened up a lot of truths. Because here now, since 1867, here in Antigua, Sunday has been a public holiday. So it's like 10 years after the Dred Scott case. Now they made Sunday a public holiday here in the Corporation of Antigua and Barbuda. So it was lining up. It was like, okay, the Dred Scott case in 1857, and then from another teacher or another speaker, he mentioned that birth certificates were only started to have birth certificates in 1857, and I found that very interesting. I found it peculiar at the point when he said that.
Great. Fabulous. So from that point on, you feel empowered, you know you're white. You did a video, which I have mentioned to people about African American, Black, and then you can include the others, Negro, person of color, visible minority, in the same category, whether you want to call it synonyms or similes, metaphors, that Black or African American is a patented meat and processed food.
Facts.
Has anyone that you know down there in Antigua on the island who knows you seen that video to your knowledge?
Well, I've seen the views have come up. That's my most viewed video. It has over 300 views at this present point, but
Okay.
I haven't I haven't is like I get a lot of bumping of heads from people who are still a part of the Christian Dome
And that's to
relate.
be expected. Because
Because
go ahead.
and those who I bump heads a lot with is those who are of the Adventist persuasion. Those who
Mhm.
are of the Adventist persuasion, they have a hard time coming to the realization that etymology is the key to unlock a lot of the trickery with the language. Because English is not really our first language.
No, that we can agree on that. Definitely agree on that. Due to the programming in our DNA. The next thing I want to ask you is um, with the video you did on Black African American being a patented meat and processed food, has anybody that you know wanted to have a conversation or talk with you about why you did the video?
Not to my knowledge, not up to now. Because it's like for here in Antigua, we're very political. It's more red, it's more blue, and if it's not what say, is who say. Is not if I say something, I'm not going to be recognized because I don't have a name like Hadid or Hani or Abbott. You know, these long time, you know, overseer names. So
Yeah.
it's like if you're not on ABS, which is Antigua and Barbuda station, and pushing this,
Hmm.
most people won't really get it. Most people are more into the Pan African
Yes.
Rastafari. We
Hmm.
have we have the African Hebrew Israelites here, and then just recently I saw the Israel United with Christ made an appearance here, and I found it very strange because it's like here in Antigua, we seeing that I have a African name which is Kamwi, which is me. It means fearless warrior. Because during that period of time, during the 70s and 80s, you had a lot of black power going on here. You had a lot of people that was into Marcus Garvey, into Malcolm X, into we have one of our great writers known as C.L.R. James, who was pushing for black liberation and black unity, coming from the perspective of Noble Drew Ali and Marcus Garvey. You see, so it was because for me, I was open up to right knowledge, right wisdom, and right overstanding by one of my uncles. He's Rasta, but he wouldn't consider himself Rasta because he is the one who opened me up to my first book by Malachi Z. York named Paul, Disciple or Deceiver. That was
Yes.
my first, that was my very first book that I received and studied. And from that just send me out to space. He send me global.
All right. So now that you are white, you acknowledge that because this is a global standard. I think this is what a lot of people want to overlook. Like when this is why I emphasize all participants don't make it your opinion name drop. So you bring up Barack Obama, you bring up OMB, you bring up US Census, you bring up a crow, you bring up National Institute of Health, CDC, because they're all using the same definitions. And most times when you do that, they don't, those same people who might want to be in disagreement with you when you bring that up, all of a sudden they become silent, which is
Uh,
interesting. And that's why I tell people to do that so you don't get caught in their crosshairs because you inadvertently shatter their crystal um, dome of ignorance that surrounds their whole body. And once you shatter that, they can't put it back together. Then it's like being thrown in cold water, from first thing in the morning, someone just come and dump you into the ocean, especially cold salt water. And then you're like, what you do, what you do that for? And then they're mad at you instead of you saying you need this to get well. You've been sick in the bed for here. We dump you in the salt water. That'll help pull out everything out of you. So realizing now that you're white and you've explained your experience going forward, how do you, or currently rather, how are you seeing the world now? Before it was black, now you're white. Now, how are you seeing the world? Because now I definitely know you're seeing things a little differently or majorly differently.
Well, from my perspective, I don't like to sugarcoat things, Chief. So from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot of walking zombies. You check? So it's like for me, when I'm disseminating the information, I like to go back to grammar. I like to go back to grammar and make them know. Black means pale in Old English. Black is an adjective. A black cannot describe a race or a ethnicity or a people. So overstanding, because my mother is originally from Dominica, what is known as Watakobuli, and where she's from, where she's from in Wesley, which is the east side of the island, you find the reserve. The Carib Reserve is on that side of the island. So you have before leaving from Roseau and going east, you have to meet the Carib Reserve, then you meet Maragot, then you meet Wesley, and then a mile away from Wesley is Woodford Hill. So my question was always like, if you have these three other communities on the east side, then these have to be the people who married in with the Kalinago, also known as the Caribs. Because what they keep on telling me, because I went down to Dominica to do some history, and what they keep on telling me is that it's a settlement for Antiguans and Monstratians. But I found it peculiar because with the writings that we have, the little history that we get, Dominica was the stronghold for the Caribs during that period of time where the English was trying to settle Antigua or Uladli at the time. So I found it a bit strange that you would say it was a settlement for Antiguans and Monstratians and not saying that it was a stronghold for the Caribs and the Awaks, for these people who was now running from the invasion and was seeking refuge.
Yes. And so this goes back to, again, the use of the words, the etymology. We didn't make the language. They said
No, we
this is
didn't.
the standard. Etymology is the standard because even though you may say a word and think it's English, you find out it isn't English. It comes from another language,
Facts.
Latin, etc. So you're seeing a lot of zombies. So you get to see seeing the world as it is instead of being in a fog from being black. Is that what I can take from what you're saying?
Well, with the COVID fraud that passed recently, we there was 64,290 people who was given the poison, and I come to the realization that I'm seeing that like they having what you call a meltdown where it is hard for them to comprehend, but yet still is like they have this thing like, oh, everybody have to die. So it's like that I more I more see that they move with this Christian dome mentality that, well, when my dead, I go to heaven. When in their text in the Bible they say heaven is on earth. So it's like I'm a bit confused with the fact that we went to school, we learn how to read, we learn how to write, but yet still is like the comprehension part is lacking. To overs exactly what has been done to us from since 1635, because 1635 is when they actually got to have a settlement here on this land. And here on this land, they had 119 plantations. So I found it very, very disheartening that our educational system does not push our indigenous roots. Because when I was younger, we used to take trips to the Interpretation Center by Shirley Heights and English Harbor and so forth, and they would mention these stuff, but they don't do this now. They don't do this at all now for the children. So I found it very disheartening, and I found it very disingenuous when it comes to the educators.
Well, you understand there's a book called How to Make a Negro Christian. You're familiar
Oh,
with that
thank
book.
you. Yes,
And
yes.
so that's a pre-existing contract. Plus, you also have the Boule, which a lot of the Black educators, the Black elite are part of. So that is their programming, their contract that they have to follow. And so that's why it's our job to clean up the filth made by the non-submitting fools. So, as the old saying goes, 5 minutes, whoever grasp it, whoever doesn't. And like I said, this has been a very great SF-181 experience that you shared, and I'm trust that when this is put up on YouTube and BitChute and Odyssey and the rest of them, that the people in Antigua will realize, and like that they have been tricked. And again, it's one of those things where when people have been hoodwinked, it's too painful to admit, so they go along with it, and they're playing a dangerous game, because if they believe there's a judgment day, if they believe they're going to go before their creator, they're going to want to say, oh well, so and so told me to do it, and they'll be like, no, you had a choice, you chose to follow that, even though you knew it was a lie, even though people's various different types of people sent and warned them. So this is fabulous. So this is why we have to claim our indigenousness, claim the whiteness, because if we don't do that, you're not going to change anything in this economic world. That's just the reality.
And
And
I appreciate and have a lot of gratitude for what you have been doing for the past 2 decades. And it is having an effect. One thing that I love the fact that you always say they can slow it down, but they can't stop it. So, and one thing that I consider and respect a lot about you is your patience. You have a lot of patience when it comes to the knowledge. And that's what I admire. I admire the fact that you are a living example of where I want to be, or where I am going in this journey, in this white journey. Because I am white. I am white.
so, are there any final statements or comments you want to make to the public before we finish this interview?
Well, to the public, let freedom be your motivation. And if you want to know more, contact Chief at ASP at aspprotonmail.com,
Is ASP webinar?
aspwebinar at protonmail.com, and get white, and able to stand on your indigenous heritage, because no one else is doing it. No one else is doing it like Chief Nanya-Shaabu of the Asakata Nation, and he is the plenipotentiary of the planet. No one else is doing it. Let freedom be your motivation, my people. Get white and get bright.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated for that, Kambui. People can also call me directly at 587-712-0639. I'm on WhatsApp. I'm on Telegram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on X.com. I'm on LinkedIn. If you go to OpenSea.io, you can put my appellation in there and get some NFTs that I have there as well. And also, you can send an email to @SikataYM. That's ATSIKHATAYM at gmail.com. And get on and get white because you can't do anything. You can't fight against anything. You can't resist against anything if you're Black, Negro, African American, person of color, Afro Caribbean, any of those without having standing at law. And the pre existing contract with Black nullifies that. All right, so everyone, much appreciated. We will have this video up. Much appreciated, Kambui, for your time, and for
All right.
all those in Antigua. It's time for y'all to get white. Khashukador, Khashukador,
Ashukador,
Khashukador. White power,
ashuk-
white power, white power.
White power, white power, white power.